Something that I see happening a lot in the human design and business space is that people will utilize human design more of an identity instead of a feedback system. And it's quietly, or maybe loudly, keeping them stuck in both life and business. They're unintentionally putting themselves into a box by saying, oh, I'm a projector, I can't be consistent. Or, oh, I'm a manifesting generator, of course I'm going to jump from thing to thing and never finish something. And if you found yourself saying something like that, this episode is for you, because I truly believe that you can be consistent no matter what your human design type is, especially in business, especially when you break things down into what are the daily non-negotiables that I need to do in order to keep my business running. And I don't mean sit down and send 100 messages a day. I mean, what are those little things that you can tap into in 20, 30, maybe even 60-minute intervals in your business to keep yourself moving forward? You could do that daily. You could do that weekly. What are those things? So today, I just want to break down a little bit of why human design is not a rule book and how you can stop using your human design type as a box that you've unintentionally put yourself into. If it doesn't light you up, it won't sell. And that is your sign to shift things in your business. Hi, I'm your host, Maggie Olson. I'm your business mentor, your human design expert, and the creator of the magnetic method designed to convert formula. I help women entrepreneurs just like you simplify their strategy, align their sales with their energy, and finally build a business that feels like freedom, not like pressure. After nearly 2 decades in entrepreneurship, I have learned that success isn't actually about doing more. It's about aligning with what already works for you, tapping into your natural energy. And here on the Chaos to Clarity podcast, we're going to blend human design with practical business strategy to help you attract clients naturally, sell with confidence, and grow with ease. So if you're ready to design a business that lights you up, converts with clarity, and learn more about working with me inside of the Magnetic Method mentorship and all of my other programs, you're going to find the link to all of that in the show notes, and you're going to find all of that information here on the podcast. So let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. Hello and welcome back to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. My name is Maggie. I am your host, your business mentor, and your human design expert. And today I am so excited just to be talking more about how human design is not an identity for you to perform, right? It's not a performance thing. It's a feedback system for you to listen to and understand when things aren't aligned. And when people turn it into a rule book, they wind up stopping their growth. And that's not what we're here for, right? We want growth. So think of it this way. Human design was created and downloaded, intended to create freedom for people who are learning and understanding and navigating the system. But a lot of times I notice that people unintentionally use it to shrink themselves instead of growing, or it holds them back. Because I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I am a manifesting generator, I can't be consistent. Or, oh, I am a projector, so I can't DM people, or whatever that thing is. Okay. So statements like that, they sound self-aware, right? I'm a projector, I can't be consistent. However, I would challenge that. And I have challenged my clients about this, right? Because that kind of statement is actually an identity statement, right? I am this, so I can't that. And it's not feedback, right? It's you're saying I'm this, so that. Instead, that really means that the more you're saying that thing, the more it becomes true. So you're telling yourself, because I'm a projector, I can't do that thing. Because I'm a reflector, I can't do that thing. Because I'm a manager, I can't do that thing. So you're putting yourself in this box, or you're creating these roadblocks that really are not helping you, right? They're holding you back because what you think becomes what you say, and what you say becomes what you do or who you are. So if human design, if you feel like it's making you do less the more you learn because you're like, roadblock, 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 I'm blocked in. Okay, so if human design is making you do less and hide more or wait longer, then you're actually like holding yourself back instead of honing in your consistency muscle and understanding the feedback that comes with that. So this is kind of the core mistake, if you will, that I see people make, right? They turn human design into permission to avoid discomfort because I'm just going to tell you this straight, right? 20 years into business, there's a lot of things that make you really uncomfortable in business. You're going to have to get comfortable with the discomfort. And it's not always rainbows and butterflies. You plan one thing and it goes one way when you're expecting it to go a different way, right? So you kind of have to be aware that, yes, I have intentions to do this thing, but it might go that way. Okay. So what really happens is human design does not remove discomfort. Okay. It's not going to take that away. However, it can tell you where it shows up and how it feels, meaning the discomfort. It can help shine light on those things. So if you're sitting there saying, I can't be consistent, I can't DM, I can't do a masterclass, I can't show up on Facebook, right? You're kind of avoiding visibility. You're avoiding rejection, you're avoiding consistency, and you're avoiding making a clear choice, which a non-decision is a decision, right? You're choosing to stay in that chaos, and your human design tends to become a shield instead of a tool. So there's a big difference between honoring your design and hiding behind it. Now, how do I know this? Because I did hide behind my design for a long time until I faced a lot of the stuff that I was like, oh, I actually really like that's not what I needed to do. So if your human design explanations kind of sound like a list of limitations, right? Like I'm a manifesting generator. I can't be consistent. I'm a manifesting generator. I can't, I'm just going to spiral. I'm going to go off and do all kinds of side quests. And yes, I can still go and do side quests, even if I'm a mani-gen, right? But I also have honed in my consistency muscle. And now I understand when something is not aligned and I start to feel the fear, I start to feel the frustration and the anger. Those are cues. Those are the not self cues that come up to make me go, oh, okay, I'm feeling this thing. Okay, let's explore why. So if we're thinking about using human design as a feedback system and not a rule book, human design can give you signals, sensations, timing cues, energy feedback, not necessarily behavioral cues, but all of those other things. And I say this because I've literally felt this for myself, and I've watched my clients go through it as well. I've helped my clients learn how to navigate and understand their human design in a way that allows them to go, oh, I'm feeling this, right? And oftentimes it shows up in coaching calls, right? I was just on a coaching call earlier today, and my client said, I'm feeling really disappointed. This isn't working the way I thought it would. And I said, okay, let's pause because that feedback is important, right? So we kind of unpacked some of that. Why are you feeling that? Where are you feeling that? What is happening that's causing you to feel that thing? So she's a reflector, right? So cueing into that disappointment, right? And understanding, okay, we're not here to hone in and be like, oh, you're so disappointed. No, we're here to go, okay, disappointment is showing up. There's a reason. How can we shift disappointment into surprise? And your motivation is really that like driver of shifting from not self into the self, right? So we created a few strategies for her to try on over the next couple of weeks, right? Nothing crazy, nothing over the top. It was really just a simple, Who can you tell about this? How can you get this out to more people? What are your networks that you're already connected in, right? She's launching something. So, just knowing that she has that support and tuning into that disappointment is really important, because before she would feel disappointed for a long time and she had said to me, oh, this hasn't worked. I'm not sure if it'll work again, right? So cueing into that and understanding that has allowed her to see success faster, because she's seeing it and now she knows, okay, I'm feeling this way. Let's explore, not just let's sit and wallow in a pit of doom. I mean, you can, and there are definitely times where, it's appropriate to like feel those feelings and then say, okay, I've felt the feelings and now I don't want to actually don't want to sit here all day and mope, right? I actually do want to do something that's going to bring me out of this. And that is an important thing to tackle too. So when you're looking for feedback, right? If you're looking for, these energy cues or timing cues, sensations or signals, as a sacral manifesting generator, right? When something is a no for me, it's literally a pit, a rock in my stomach. When it's a yes, it feels light and airy and like easy to say yes to. So what that feedback can look like for you, and it's going to feel a little different for everyone, especially depending on, what your authority is, what your strategy is. So you're looking for things like energy drops. You're looking for things like resentment is showing up. Oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that, right? You're looking for things like if you're feeling pressure, oh, I have to finish that. I just have to be more consistent. I should, blah, 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 right? So you're looking for that pressure. You're looking for bitterness or frustration or anger or disappointment. And those aren't, like I said, those aren't signals to stop living and wallow in a pit of doom, right? Like, by all means, yes, we all need that, like, okay, I'm going to take the next 10 minutes to just be angry or be frustrated or feel those feelings. And then after 10 minutes, I'm going to go, okay, I don't have to stay in this state. What can I do to shift out of that state? And it's not a total 180 by any means. It's more of like, okay, this thing A is not working. What if I tried thing B? Would that work a little better? Can I try that? Can I set a 10-minute timer and try that thing and see how it works? Do I need to get up and go for a walk outside? Like, what do I need to do in order to move the energy, to stir it up a little bit so that I can come back and look at things again in a new light, right? So these signs, right, that you're looking for, the energy drop, the resentment, the feeling, the not self feelings, there's signs of how to adjust when and how you're doing the things that you're doing. So when your identity is saying, I am this, so I can't do that, the feedback really says, right, the feedback that we're looking for, instead of saying I'm this, so I can't, we're looking for, when I do it this way, something feels off. What could I adjust? How could I approach this differently? Where can I look for something different? So, that distinction is going to like wildly change how you approach things. Now, I talked a little bit about consistency as a muscle, right? You have to show up in order to be consistent. You have to keep doing the thing over and over. It's like a yoga practice. Now, this is especially important for non-sacral types. And I would say this is also important for people who don't have a defined root. Okay, I do not have a defined root. So my consistency does not always look the same, right? I can be super consistent and then I'll fall off the bandwagon and then I'll get back on for a little while and then I'll fall back off. And that is what consistency looks like for me. And, over the years, I've really learned to accept that of myself, right? And it's not an excuse, but it's something that I know about myself. I know, and I also know that your root, whether it is defined or undefined, it is searching for the cycle. And a lot of times I personally fall off the bandwagon because my sacral that is defined gets so excited and is like, yes, we can absolutely do all the things. I also have a sun gate of 29. Okay. So I am like predisposed to do and say yes to all the things. So for me, practicing consistency looks like practicing rest. I can work for days on end and then all of a sudden be so exhausted that I can't get out of bed. Okay. And I want you to understand that, like, I lived that cycle for many, many, many years. And I had to come to terms with, like, okay, I don't want to feel exhausted all the time, or I don't want to have these bursts of energy and then be in bed for days or not feel like I'm getting anywhere. And I've had clients say the same thing to me. Okay. This is just my personal example of this. So when we think about consistency, consistency is not a personality trait. It's a practiced skill, just like yoga, just like riding a bike, just like exercising, just like brushing your teeth, just like walking, just like all of those things. It's a practiced skill. Now, I truly believe anyone and everyone can develop consistency, right? It is something you can learn, you can do, even if you're a projector, even if you're a reflector, you can be consistent, but you have to define what that looks like for you. Now, if you don't take the time to define it initially, right? And this is where 20 leads in 2 weeks, really that framework that I teach inside the Magnetic Method program, this is where this was born, because I was really, like, I was told by a coach, go out and message 40 to 100 people a day. And I tried, and it was terrible. I didn't like it. I hated it, right? I didn't want to show up in the DMs. I was exhausted. But I do love DMs, right? Like, I love having conversations. So I got really curious about that, and I said to myself, okay, 40, 50, 60, 80, 100 conversations a day, I can't. That's not for me. But I can show up and I can start 5 new conversations per day. And I can, carry on 5 other conversations per day, right? So 5 new, 5 existing. And that's kind of my personal max before my manifesting generator brain goes off and is like, we need to do something else, right? Which is about 20 to 30 minutes for me, which is where 20 leads in 2 weeks in 20 minutes a day was born. And that really fits for anyone. Now, I'm not saying you have to go message 10 people every single day. However, if you're starting to keep track of, okay, so on Monday, I message 5 new people based on people who are commenting on my posts or who I'm connecting with in Facebook groups or at a networking event, or, and these are things like, hey, I saw your post in ABC group and I commented, I loved what you talked about. I just wanted to connect, right? Or someone comments on one of your posts and, maybe you've had a little back and forth in the comment section and you go and add them as a friend and you slide into their DMs and you say, hey, I appreciate our conversation in this post. I just wanted to stay connected with you here, right? That is opening the door to, number 1, to consistency, but number 2, to a conversation and to a potential warm lead. Yes, consistency can look different, but it still exists for each type. So if you're a projector, you don't necessarily need intensity. You need a rhythm, right? So what is that rhythm you want to follow? If you're a reflector, you don't necessarily need predictability, but you do need a structure. How can you structure your day in a way that feels great for you? Okay, manifestors, you don't need constant output, but you do need follow through and follow up. Manifestors tend to get lost because they have the urge and they're like, yay, I'm informing you. And then they don't follow up or they don't follow through. So learning how that follow through happens is really important. For manifesting generators and generators, you don't necessarily need sameness, but you do need completion. A lot of mani-gens and a lot of generators do not have a defined root. So not having a defined root, you tend to overwork yourself, and the completion of a cycle includes rest. So manifestors and generators, you're looking for that completion there. And, this is just something that I want to name the lie here, right? Like inconsistency is not spiritual. It's usually unsupported. And that's something that, if you're feeling unsupported, it can feel really hard to keep going and to understand how this works. That's why I created the Magnetic Method program, my coaching program. That's also why I created 20 leads in 2 weeks. That's why I created almost I would say actually everything, right? Because I want you to feel supported. I want you to be able to understand all of these, bigger concept things. And I want you to understand that you can have a business on your terms. So let's go through, we're going to shift gears a little bit. Let's go through some practical reframes of where people tend to get stuck, right? So we're going to talk through a few examples. A lot of people, they are in this all or nothing thinking, right? So people are waiting for the right energy or the right cycle or the right invitation. And then they just do nothing, right? So they're doing nothing. They're sitting back, twiddling their thumbs, waiting for the right time or the right thing or the right whatever to come in. And then nothing comes because they've done nothing because they're still waiting. So again, it goes back to how can you understand what is the right energy? What is the right cycle? What is the right invitation? For my projectors out there who are listening, I would ask you, what does an invitation feel like to you? So if you've been listening, you know that I have a projector daughter. She's about 8 years old. And for her, I can't list off things like I can for my son, who is a manifesting generator. For him, because he is a sacral, right? Like he has a defined sacral, I can list off for him, the uh-huhs and the uh-uhs. For my daughter, I have to approach it a little bit differently. I have to ask her, what are you hungry for supper? That's an invitation from me to her for her to tell me what she's hungry for. Okay. And, yes, she's only 8. However, if we're applying this into business, I have tons of friends I have a lot of projectors in my space, right? And helping you as a projector understand, what does an invitation look like for you? What do you feel like when someone initiates an invitation for you to share? That's a big one. Okay, so if we're reframing this, right? If you're reframing waiting for the right energy or cycle or whatever, okay, think of it this way. 10 minutes a day builds more trust with both yourself and your audience than a once a month energy surge. So for my projectors who are like, I can't DM or I can't initiate a conversation, I would challenge you to say, how can you spend 10 minutes every day connecting with your current network, your current Facebook or Instagram or TikTok friends, right? How can you do that 10 minutes a day? And if you tell me I don't have 10 minutes, I would also push back on that, because I know if we would go into the settings of your phone, you are spending more than 10 minutes on social media. Right? And this could look like, okay, every time I open the social media app, I'm going to make it a point to post something, or I'm going to make it a point to reach out to one of my followers just to say, hey, thank you so much for being on my friends list. I just wanted to let you know that I see you. Okay. So another common place where people tend to get stuck is going to be in support systems. And for this, consistency tends to fail when everything relies on willpower, which means you're not batching things, or you're, using 5 platforms. So support systems that you can lean into are doing things like batching your social media, or like what I do with this podcast. When I record this podcast, it does a whole bunch of things. It creates 2 emails. It creates 3 carousels. It creates 3 reels. It creates a podcast episode. And then that's it. There was more. At one time I was going to do a blog, but when I wanted to go and execute that, it felt like too much. So I dialed it back, right? But so one podcast creates social media content in 2 different ways, carousels and reels. So it creates 6 days of content. It creates 2 emails that go out to my list. And then it creates the podcast overall that goes out to all of my followers. So one thing creates many here. It's a batching, right? And then also, so being supportive in your systems mean, like using one core platform instead of 5. And this is where, for me personally, I've seen a lot of growth, right? Like I, for a long time, thought I needed to show up on Instagram like all the girlies do. And, like I love Instagram. I've been on Instagram since it was created. But quite honestly, the platform that performs better and more consistently for me is Facebook. I love Facebook groups. I love being in Facebook Messenger. It feels more natural for me to be there with this business. And for a long time, that really made me feel like, oh, why can't I just do it on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube? But I don't have to, right? So instead of trying to rely on 5 places, I have 2. I have podcasts, right, which go out into the ether, into the podcast land on Spotify and Apple and wherever you're listening to this, as well as I have Facebook, which is like the main place that has a few different avenues for me, right? I have my Facebook group, the 7-figure systems for women CEOs. And then I also have I have like 5 to 7 other Facebook groups that I'm reliably showing up in. So another system that can really feel supportive is clearly weekly themes instead of posting when inspired. Now, this one is nuanced because it takes some time to get into this rhythm. At least it did for me, right? That might not be the case for you, but if you're using podcasts as one of the ways to generate more eyes, new, fresh leads, right? Like, what are the weekly themes you want to talk about? What are your pillars? What can you show up and consistently talk about instead of just posting when you're inspired? Now, if you're someone who's like, oh, I'm a projector, I can't possibly be consistent, this is where I want to challenge you on this. What would it look like if you wrote down 12 different themes, right, for 12 weeks, and you created 3 posts for each of those themes, and you started right now, right? You start right now, you create 1 week, and you post and schedule them and see what happens. And then next week, you create 3 more, and you post and you schedule them, and you see what happens. So that leads into the last one, the last supportive system here, and that's templates, containers, routines that really hold you when motivation dips. Now, this can look like accountability partners. I have a couple of people who we exchange kind of these weekly lists of accountability, right, with. And for me, it's so helpful because I know, okay, I'm going to give you this list of stuff that I'm working on. And it's not for that person to come back and be like, oh, you didn't get A, B, or C done. It's more of a gentle reminder for myself and for the other person to be like, wow, I had a lot of stuff last week and I didn't do that stuff, but here's what I did do. And now this week, how am I shifting that? How am I changing that? That's really helped me a lot here. Now, something that I want to just really hone in on is that human design doesn't replace systems, but it does help tell you which systems you'll actually stick to. And, something that I really want to lean into here is that when you find the systems that work for you, which is what I help people do, I help people figure out what systems really, really feel good and what systems don't feel good. Because what works for me is not necessarily going to work for you, and that's okay. But I can help you understand how and what and when to choose those things. So if we're thinking about this from a client journey perspective, because it's really important when you're bringing in and bringing on systems and understanding what works, what doesn't, how consistency feels, how you navigate it, all that stuff, right? Understanding your client journey is kind of like the baseline here. So this is really, people want a better offer, but what they really need is often a sustainable path. Most people that I connect with for offer audits, they have a great offer, but it's the path, right? It's the client journey of cold to sold that they might not be understanding, or they might not, like, as the creator of that program, they might not have done or realized all the steps that go into it, right? Sometimes it can look like 1, 2, 3, very easy, but what are the nuances? And now I'm not saying go into every single nuance and, just that's not what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is, what is your sustainable path, especially if you're a reflector, a projector, right? Anyone really. What is that path that allows you to find simplicity and sustainability? Because even the best client journeys are not the fanciest ones. So you can really, you want it to be repeatable without burning out or disappearing. So for me, for example, my client journey to go from cold to sold is you're going to connect with me, whether that's through networking, right? Networking that I offer or that I attend, through social media, right? I'm very active on Facebook, in Facebook groups, sometimes on Instagram. I'm also kind of active on Threads, and, this podcast has brought people in. So those are kind of like the 3 ways that you're connecting with me. From there, you're going to start taking in more of my content. You're going to start listening to my podcast, watching my reels, reading my posts, right? And then maybe you're going to join my Facebook group. And from my Facebook group, you're going to start to get access to my master classes, because that's where I host the master classes, is inside of the Facebook group. Or, and then from the masterclass, you're going to see what offers I have on the table. And that's where it really starts to go into, okay, what kind of help do you need? Is a 2-hour strategy call more aligned for you? Or is it more aligned for you to opt into the group program to have a longer, container together? Or is one-on-one more appropriate? Do you need to go faster, stronger, harder, right? What do you need? So that's my client journey, right? We connect, you take in my content, you attend a masterclass, and then you figure out where do you want to go? Now, does that happen, in that order all the time? No. Does it happen, within a week? No. It takes time between the initial connection and the masterclass to nurture, and even between the masterclass and opting in, it can take some time to nurture people, to, have them come into my world. So your human design, though, can really help you choose that path. And that's what helped me hone in on my client journey and understand what are the simple steps of people coming into my world and purchasing my stuff. What are those things? What do I love to do? How do I love to connect with people, right? So using my 1-4 profile, using manifesting generator, using my defined centers, defined gates, understanding what's open, what's not, right? That really helped me figure out one path instead of the 5 half ones that I had built. It helped me simplify from 27 different programs to 3, right? There's 3 options to work with me: a strategy call, a group program, or the one-on-one, right? That's it. And it allowed me to have one message that I can repeatably say, that I can easily say, that people can understand. And it allowed me to show up in a way that didn't require me to reinvent myself every single week. So it really made it so much easier and more practical versus theory, Now, we're going to close this episode And I want to talk just directly to anyone who, like maybe feels seen and called out, because I'm not doing it in a way to be like, you need to change. No, this is an invitation for you to just step back and think about what and how things are happening for you. So if you've been using your human design to literally explain why things aren't working instead of how to refine how they work, now is your moment to recalibrate, right? You can join me, number one, in the Magnetic Method program. The link is going to be below. There's a group option. There's also a one-on-one option. So we will be starting the group option towards the end of February, but feel free to apply at any time. You can join at any time here. You can also opt into an offer audit, which is a great way to connect with me, to understand how I work, how things in my programs work. And it really will give you the opportunity to simplify and sustain what you're doing. So think of this: when you work with me, we are tailoring the system to you so that your design supports your momentum instead of stalling it. And I just want to reassure you, you don't need a new identity. You just need better feedback and a better structure that honors it. But more importantly, you just need to listen to the feedback, what your body, what your natural energy is telling you. That is what is most important here. So as we wrap this up, thank you so much for being here. Again, as always, all the links are going to be down below in the show notes. Feel free to slide into my DMs on Instagram, Facebook, Threads. Let me know what you loved about the episode. Let me know any questions that you have about this episode, because I'm always using your feedback to create more episodes just like this. So I will see you again. Make sure you like, subscribe, save, all the things. Leave a review. That's something that I have not been great at asking for. But I would love it if you could leave me a review on Spotify, on Apple. Those are the two main platforms that I push this podcast out to. If you can leave me a review over there, I read them all. I love your feedback, and I am so excited to see you. And I hope you have an amazing